All right, hello and welcome. Welcome back to me, I suppose, and welcome back to you for watching. Thank you for sticking around and thank you for showing up. So we are going to start over. I know you've seen me play Stardew Valley before, but we are going to start over. And what we're going to be doing with this series within Stardew Valley is first, I'm going to explain why I disappeared and what happened, where I was, why I was there, and actually some of the underlying psychology and neuropsychology that goes in to why I disappeared and what's going to be going on here, including what might happen if I just disappear at random. I will hopefully be able to hit the mute button before that happens, but if you see the gameplay just stop and not come back and not have an explanation, that may be why. So we're going to cover that. We're going to have this in general just be a PsychoBabble stream. And I thought I needed something for this PsychoBabble stream where we can just go off on tangents, talk about this, but then turn around and talk about topics in psychology either that show up tangentially, but I've also had a couple of requests for topics that folks have asked for me to talk about, things like narcolepsy and the underlying neuropsychology of that I've done the background research into but never had the opportunity to actually record a video on, and we're going to use this stream for that as well. But what I've really needed is something that is a little bit mindless, because that's been my life of late. I've spent an awful lot of time staring off into corners and an awful lot of time consuming Stardew Valley content, and actually this video is inspired by some of the content that I've watched with my child Gamer Bear, who is the one who is impersonating me right now in the chat. And so Gamer Bear and I watched a video on Poxiel's channel, and I'm going to link the video and Poxiel's channel in the description, and I strongly recommend that you go watch that. And a lot of the videos on Poxiel's channel are fantastic. We've watched a lot of them together, but Poxiel did a challenge where they got perfection using only parsnips, by selling only parsnips. And one of the complaints that he had in that video was simply that it was kind of mindless and it required a whole lot of repetitive, you plant the parsnips, you get the parsnips out of the ground, you sell them, you plant them again. And that is exactly the type of challenge that I need. I've actually been doing a 999 challenge, so that was inspired by the algorithm as well. I'll link that in the description as well, because again, that is something that I can just do mindlessly that doesn't require a lot of focused attention being a thing that I have an awful lot of difficulty with. And so that is the challenge that we're going to do in the background while I do this PsychoBabble stream. Now, I do have a couple of games that I am going to try to sprinkle in the middle there, but I make no promises. I have a game, for example, on vampire therapy that I really want to be able to play, but I have to wait until a time period that I can actually focus my attention for an extended period of time, that before I go and try to play that game, because it requires, I assume it's going to require more than 15 to 20 minutes of focused attention, and that's what I get typically if I want to be able to function for the rest of the day. And so we're going to talk about that, but as soon as I can, that's a game that I really want to play, and there are a few others that I'm going to try to get in and play as well. So hopefully I'll be back. Hopefully I'll be able to split this up into videos. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to stop in the middle and then redo introductions each time unless I am dramatically shifting topics. Instead, I'm just going to break it up into pieces and try to splice in introductions. I think that's just going to be the easier way to do it. So, hey, welcome back to the PsychTricks or JediPsychTricks channel. I've been slowly shortening it to PsychTricks just because it's a lot easier to say, but I am going to get started with this challenge where we go in and we try to get perfection in Stardew Valley using just parsnips. And while we do that, go in and explain why I have disappeared. So here are our first set of parsnips as we get started here. And while I go in and do some of the more mundane tasks. And one of the things I'm going to do actually is I'm going to zoom out. It's a little bit easier on my eyeballs and on my brain to be able to see everything. And that's really the thing, is that I have to select activities that are easier on my brain. Because the reason that I have disappeared is because apparently, and I didn't know this, you can apparently develop epilepsy at the age of 40. And this is a thing I didn't know. That's kind of how everybody has a midlife crisis of some sort. And my form of midlife crisis was deciding that it was going to be time to have seizures. I'm going to pause for just a sec. If you notice that any of the sounds in the game are too loud, just let me know and I will do an adjustment of the balance of the sounds in the game. I know especially things like cutting the fiber can be kind of on the louder side in some videos. So just let me know and I will go and fix that. So yeah, so I've been dealing with that, and most individuals with epilepsy, both children and adults, are able to control it with medications. So that's what we have been trying to do for 3 years now, unsuccessfully. And so I thought I was just going to be disappearing for a short period of time, going to be getting some medications, finding my own personal better living through chemistry, and then coming right back. And come to find out that in some cases, and mine being one of those cases, that's not how things go. And so I might disappear again. In fact, I would rather expect that I am going to disappear rather than not expect that I'm going to disappear. I'm hoping that this can be split up into multiple videos so that I can try to take myself through the times where I know for certain I'm going to disappear. Because I do know for certain that I'm going to have a 2-week period where there's no way I can stream because I'll be in the hospital, and there is no way using hospital Wi-Fi that I'm going to be able to connect to anything. I'm probably buffering already at this point, and I apologize for those who are watching this stream if you are getting a nasty buffer. It is not you, it's me, in every sense of the word. And so I do want to welcome folks back and thank you for being here. Oh good, I'm not buffering. So Gamer Bear is here in part because Gamer Bear is awesome, but Gamer Bear is also here because Gamer Bear is being my tech support and letting me know any issues that I may or may not be having. And so that's fantastic that somehow when I went to windowed mode, you are flattered, that I am apparently not buffering in Windows mode. This makes watching the chat easier. This makes it easier for me to get a lot of things done. Just so you know, because the last time I played this, I paid a lot of attention to all of the dialogue, and you may notice that I am skipping through it. If you want to see some playthroughs that actually use the dialogue and pay attention to the dialogue, I do have a playthrough where I started off doing that, and there are many great playthroughs that go through the dialogue, and probably when they come out with the 1.7 update, because Concerned Ape is simply a superstar who keeps releasing all just free updates for the community. I can't imagine there will be anything but a ridiculous number of playthroughs that go through and go through all of that dialogue again and see what dialogue has changed. And that's not what this one is about. What we're doing here is we are going to go in and focus in on our Parsnips. We are going to lock in as Gamer Bear would say. 6, 9, 10. I had to count there, and one thing I can't do is divide my attention as well as I used to. So yeah, so that is where we have been. Oh, Gamer Bear thinks that there's going to be a new farm type, so that is going to be part of where we're going, is to a new farm type once we get to 1.7, so that'll be interesting. But what's been going on as well is I've played an awful lot of Stardew Valley because I've needed to play something that I've already recognized, something that I already knew frontwards and backwards. I can play Stardew Valley in my sleep, and I could before I even got started. And Gamer Bear could probably tell you the exact number of hours that I've played, because every once in a while we look at it just out of curiosity, how many total hours that I've played. But it would be an embarrassing number if I didn't love this game so much. But even with how much I know Stardew Valley, I have had to add in a few things, somewhere between 3K and 4K hours. So even with that, I have had to add in a few things for this playthrough, and actually for all of my playthroughs, that I view as accessibility mods for myself. So one of them that you're going to see used, and that I'm going to use right now, is convenient inventory, where I can stack to nearby chests. So anything that's already in a chest near me, I'm going to be able to stack into it. Why? Because when you go into chests, it flickers. And I'm doing this to myself right now, and I actually have my eyes closed as I do it. So as you go into chests, it flickers. And although I do not have the type of epilepsy where those flickers will trigger seizures, I do have the type of epilepsy where those flickers will make the world feel weird, and will make me tired, and will make me more likely to just have my brain buffer and make it difficult to think. Not necessarily seizures, but troublesome brain activity. And that's actually one thing. There are a lot of things that I learned about epilepsy that I didn't know, and I thought I knew an awful lot, because as a psychology professor, I teach about the brain, I teach about the electrical activity within the brain, and so I thought I knew a lot about how the neurons communicated with each other, and how epilepsy influenced the way that neurons, brain cells essentially, communicate with each other. And there's been an awful lot that I've learned as a result of developing epilepsy myself. And one of them was that not all types of epilepsy are photosensitive. That is, not everybody who has epilepsy will have a seizure simply in response to a strobe light or because something flickers. And actually, one of the reasons that the flickers are so troublesome for me have nothing to do with the epilepsy and everything to do with headaches. And I've also discovered that I have multiple types of headaches, and have been focusing on treating those as well, so that we can tease apart which symptoms are from which problem. So it's been a very interesting journey in that regard. So you'll see that I'm using a mod within the game that is designed to just help me, and it's not really going to make a huge difference when it comes to the challenge that we're doing, but it will make a huge difference for me when it comes to my ability to play the game. So these mods have become not necessarily convenience mods for me, although I'm going to admit that they are very convenient, but they've also just become accessibility mods for me, mods that allow me to be able to play games, and to play this game in particular. It has been my go-to comfort game, and to be able to play this game in particular without having it negatively impact my ability to function. Now, there have been some days where even trying to play this has been too much, and those are the days that I know that things have been really tough. Gamer Bears, be right back. Alrighty. Have fun. And so I think that it's important to talk about how even when we have awareness, right? We hear about things like, epilepsy awareness, and being aware of these diagnoses, and being aware of invisible disabilities, that sometimes we can even think that we're aware of these things and think that we're well educated on them, and suddenly there's things that we're finding out that we simply didn't know. And not being a neuropsychologist, I simply didn't know these things. And in fact, a lot of the psychologists that I have talked to didn't know these things. It's just not taught unless you start getting into neurology and neurosurgery. Hey, Red Fighter, how's it going? Potato, that is, potatoes are one of my favorite foods. in every single form. Probably one of the best type of parties I can think of is a party where the meal itself is just a potato bar in every different type. Yes, but this is where we have parsnips. But did you know that one of the things that I've done in the past is when I'm trying to eat healthier, when I'm trying to have fewer carbs especially, is to swap out potatoes for parsnips. So something that is really delicious is to cut parsnips into chip-like shapes and then to bake them, and they will get crispy, or you can air fry them and they will get crispy and you can eat them instead of potato chips, or eat them with a meal. And they are really, really delicious. And that's actually this is going to be, I think I've mentioned this before, that this is kind of going to be a PsychoBabble stream, one where, or a Babble stream in general, one where we take things where they go. And that's partially because that's how my brain works these days, right? If I wanted to stream and stay super duper focused, that's going to require focused attention. And that's going to require using some parts of my brain that currently are having an awful lot of trouble. Do I know why they're having an awful lot of trouble? No, because they're actually not the areas of my brain that are associated with my seizures. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But focusing attention is actually quite difficult for me. And so we're just going to go where we go. And one of the places that I want to go actually has to do with the use of parsnips as a replacement for potatoes and how you would use that in a low-carb diet. Because something that I only somewhat realized, I knew it, but only intellectually, if that makes sense. And that was the original use of the keto diet. Originally, the keto diet was developed not for people losing weight, not to help in that regard in any way, but was developed to help in the treatment of epilepsy. That is, following that diet would actually help with the management of epilepsy, especially in a subset of children who suffered from epilepsy that was that needed some additional supplemental control. Oh no, I'm going to pass out. Not for real, just in the game. Okay, I did not. You know what? I'm going to test something, though. So someone told me that filling my watering can does not use energy. Oh, check it out. It did not use energy. That's fantastic. Now, I don't have any other energy source, so I am not going to plant the rest of those. I'm going to have to wait until the next time. Who's getting on the floor? The brain slugs are getting on the floor? I actually changed my... Oh, me if I go to pass out. I actually changed my setup. One of the things that was a challenge for me when I was trying to figure out how I would be able to stream again was that I used to stream at my desk because it was the easiest place to set up my microphone, to set up my computer. But getting on the floor is actually related to that. It is not the best place for me to be if I were to have a seizure, because I would then, be in a high place and not be in a safe location. So what I ended up having to do was figure out a way for me to be on my bed while I was playing. So that, oops, I'm going to turn this on. For me to be on my bed while I was playing. And that's the safest place for me to be, because I have gotten into the habit of, I have what are called Seizure Auras, and I know that Lormer in chat knows this because they are a friend of mine who has, we've gone out together and who knows the seizure protocol. But for those who don't, Seizure protocol involves getting to a low spot so that you don't fall down and don't injure yourself. That's actually one of the major risks of having a seizure, is not actually the seizure itself, but injuries that can happen if you are standing up or in a high place or near hard objects when it happens. And so by being on my bed, I am surrounded by soft things. And I also have what's known as a seizure aura. Not everybody does, but I do. And that aura is my warning sign. So in my case, I get a sensation that feels like deja vu. And so what I can do is when I feel that deja vu sensation, I can then get myself into a position that's safe. Now, that's why I'm hoping that if I were to experience that, I can potentially say, hold on. I don't always maintain the ability to speak. I'm much more likely actually to maintain the ability to do things than I am to maintain the ability to speak. And so what I'm hoping, therefore, is that I maintain the ability to hit mute. And I hope that because my seizures are a little bit... they sound far scarier than they actually are. And that is because the type of seizure that I have is known as a focal seizure. So I used to believe that seizures were always in every part of your brain. That if you had seizures, that they were everywhere, and you can picture a seizure. You can picture what that looks like. And we probably would picture the same thing, that you're probably picturing what I would have pictured before I started needing to know about it. And that's not actually the type of seizure that I have. Instead, there are seizures that can cross both sides of the brain and that have a more convulsive nature to them. But there are also some types of seizures that just stay in one side of the brain or stay in one region of the brain. And in my case, that's the type that I have. Specifically, the seizures that I have, and although we don't know exactly where they're coming from, they seem to be coming from the temporal lobe, specifically on the right-hand side of my brain, which happens to be the place in your brain that is associated with recognizing events, recognizing, hey, I've experienced this thing before, and is also the area of the brain that in your typical person misfires when you experience deja vu, where your brain tells you you've had an experience before, but you haven't actually. Right? That sense of deja vu when this thing really hasn't happened to you. And so I get that experience, and I've actually been getting that experience of deja vu since before I had my first recognizable seizure. And I had been getting them for about a year before then. That may very well have been indicative of early seizure activity as a result. And that experience of deja vu... You know, I talked about focused attention. Fishing in this game requires some focus of attention. I'm just going to be bad at it, and you're just going to forgive me for how bad at fishing I am. And it'll be okay. So yeah, so I get that sensation, and I can feel it building. So I can generally figure out, okay, something's about to happen, and hopefully be able to hit mute. But definitely what has happened is I have a reflex to get myself into a safe position on my side and by the pillows. Additionally, I am never really home alone anymore. And the sounds that I make while I am having the seizure are loud enough that they alert the people around me so that they can come and check on me as well. Because I do lose awareness during the worst of my seizures. Interestingly enough, I have 3 different types, and I only lose awareness during one of them. And so I may mute but still be aware, or I may simply stop talking but still be aware as well. And then once I come back, you might say, hey, you disappeared for 30 seconds, or I might notice in-game that I've just lost half a day. And that simply might happen. I'll try to cut them out of the YouTube videos when they do, because I can do that in video editing software. But for those of you who are watching on Twitch, I just want to warn in advance that that could happen. And that it's just going to be a nature of me having to stream from here on out. And for those who are watching on YouTube, is that's the sort of thing that you just don't want to watch, or if that's the sort of risk you just don't want to take, you don't want to have those time skips, that's fine. I fully understand that. But it is part of what's been going on. And explanations of everything that's been going on there will be part of what we're doing. I know right now I've been talking around things, right? And I've been talking about things in more general terms. We're not really getting deep into the psychology of it. And that's because my hope is that this first video or set of videos can really just go into the state of the channel, where we're going to be going from here. And yes, as Gamer Bear has added into the chat, in a year or two, hopefully I won't be having seizures at all. And so let's talk about why that is. Or actually, you know what? I know I said I wasn't going to be doing pauses where I cut videos, but let's do a cliffhanger where that's going to be the end of one video, and we will sort of end this video with, hey, you know, this is a lot about epilepsy and the ways that it's been interfering with things like the ability to stream and things that have been going on in my life. So we're going to stop here with the ending of hope, and then we will start the next video where we talk about why that hope is there. So see you all at the end of this video. We're going to keep playing the game, but see you all at the end of this video, and then we're going to cut back into the next.